Coastal redwoods are some of the oldest living things on the planet, and being in their presence connects us with their ancient past.
Redwoods protect us. They provide solace for us. They provide a place where we can escape kind of the craziness of everyday life.
These stalwarts have stood the test of time, but times are changing, and the very future of these southern redwoods in the Santa Cruz Mountains is at risk.
So the urgency is here, and we need to increase the scale and the pace of our work to get these trees bigger, faster, to get the remaining old growth protected. This is something that can help fight climate change here in people's backyards.
The Sempervirens Fund has been protecting these forests since 1902, when it helped establish Big Basin as California's first state park, a sanctuary for ancient redwood sentinels, inspiring the public's passion for their preservation.
Sempervirens has spent well over a century protecting redwood forest. But what we're realizing is it's not enough just to protect these forests and, call it a day. What we have to do is also change our own behavior and practices as people relating to these forests.
These towering groves had shaded millions of visitors over the years. When in the summer of 2020, lightning struck, igniting 3 different fires in the Santa Cruz Mountains.
At the time that those fires started, we actually had the entire park open to visitation in what I would only classify as post-COVID era historic visitation levels. All of our campgrounds were completely full to capacity. Our day use was full to capacity.
In a matter of days, the 3 fires converged into one mega fire, and it barreled towards the heart of Big Basin at a frightening speed.
The fire moved so quickly into the Big Basin headquarters area in the Highway 236 corridor that it literally chased our rangers out of the park, as well as a CAL FIRE strike team that attempted to set up structure protection in attempts to save our park headquarters building and several other buildings in the park headquarters footprint. Again, the fire behavior was so extreme and historic in nature to see flame lengths easily 200 feet above the canopy of the redwood forest was something that has never been witnessed before.
When the flames finally flickered out, the park so many had loved for so long was changed forever.
So the first time that I came back after the fire was 2 days after the fire front passed through the park. I can only describe it as unreal. I came across many buildings completely leveled to the ground. Our park headquarters building, our nature museum, our park store, our ranger station, all of our restroom facilities. All in all, about over 100 park structures were lost in Big Basin to the CZU lightning fire.
The CZU fire ultimately burned for many months and charred more than 80,000 acres across the Santa Cruz Mountains.
I like to tell people that for Sempervirens Fund, there was the time before the CZU fire and the time after the CZU fire. The CZU fire was such a monumental event that nobody thought would happen, that it's really reshaped our thinking going forward in terms of what we invest our resources in, what kind of policies we want to see enacted across our natural lands and parks.
For Sempervirens Fund, this new approach to forest management in a time of climate change means protecting the cooler and wetter north slopes of hillsides as refuges for redwoods in what will be overall a hotter and drier environment, and actively reducing fuel loads to prevent another CZU scale fire from happening.
We fully expect and even want a certain level of fire. It's that we need to keep the fuel levels low. We need to make sure they don't build up over 150 years. And we need to make sure that we make smart decisions about where buildings and people go, so that these forests can stay, healthy and thriving for generations to come.
Just north of Big Basin State Park, on land protected by Sempervirens Fund, the intense burning did not hit quite as hard. The remaining old-growth trees and their diverse understory are still thriving, an example of what a healthy forest future can look like.
What we love about this forest and what we're trying to recreate here with our protection work and restoration work is a mix of characteristics, a mix of tree ages, a mix of species. We have old growth, we have saplings, we have a healthy understory. There has been fire through here probably multiple times, but it has been very resilient and regrown.
In the heart of Big Basin, the color palette of charcoal gray is giving way to the green of life returning.
What we see is hope and resilience. We see regrowth, and we see old growth redwoods that are continuing to carry on with their lifespan and to maintain that resiliency.
That resiliency is on display along the trails and in the trees, and in the hearts of park staff and the public as they reimagine what a new Big Basin experience can become.
We're in really exciting times to witness something that can only be described as historic and only be described as hopeful and can only be described as, again, exciting.
The recovery of Big Basin and changes in forest management throughout the Santa Cruz Mountains give us reason to hope for a promising future.
By protecting, connecting, expanding, restoring these redwood forest lands, we're not only helping the forests themselves, but we're helping ourselves to thrive, to be safe, to be happy and healthy, even in the face of climate change.
The Sempervirens Fund is busily working throughout the Santa Cruz Mountains to ensure a bright future for redwoods, nature, and us. And I have with me the Director of Land Conservation for the Sempervirens Fund, Laura McClendon. Laura, it is great to see you. And this climate change information is coming faster and more detailed than ever before. How is that affecting the land that you are choosing to protect in the Santa Cruz Mountains?
Yeah, thank you, Doug. We have data that's better than ever, collected from on the ground, but also, from remote sensing that shows us that we need to protect these special climate refugia, the wet areas, the cooler areas along north-facing slopes and along streams that really have the best chance to be most resilient in the face of climate change. And not only protect those core areas, but connect them, make pathways between them for wildlife and much more slow-moving plants to migrate between.
All right, so the plants and animals can adapt as the climate changes, and the ecosystems can adjust with everybody. And so then you get this land, you protected it, but now you've got to manage it. And how is the management of these lands being affected by climate change?
Well, it's more important than ever to scale up our work. We do a lot of work around lowering fuels, meaning vegetation management, applying prescribed fire on the landscape, and we have to do more. So we are collaborating more than ever across property boundaries, multiple different agencies to make sure that we're building a more resilient ecosystem that can withstand even more stress from climate change.
More hot, dry conditions, more potential flooding, all the rest of it with erosion and flooding. So we have these extremes we're having to deal with. And all of this is happening in a magnificent ecological world, also a world with human beings as part of the ecosystem, communities. And how are you working to try to help to protect those communities that are a part of the Santa Cruz Mountains and have been so affected so far by climate change, with many more risks ahead?
Yeah. The Santa Cruz Mountains is a special place, not just for wildlife and trees, but for people as well. And so the work that we do out on the land to mitigate against catastrophic fire or to restore aquifers in terms of wetland restoration to provide safe drinking water for communities, all of these things add up to a green infrastructure that really supports and helps our communities going forward.
So nature cares for us. We need to care for nature. It's a virtuous cycle here. If we take care of one another, the future is better. We'll be more resilient to a changing climate. Is that the idea for the coming decades?
That is the idea, and there is a lot of energy behind this, a lot of funding coming from the state level, from the federal level, but also our individual donors. And we are ready for the challenge and are out there already doing a lot of this work.
Well, Laura, thank you so much for all the terrific work you're doing on our behalf. Really appreciate it. And please, keep up the great work.
My pleasure. Thank you, Doug.
Thank you, Laura. See you soon. Nestled between San Francisco Bay and the Pacific Ocean, San Mateo County is home to over 700,000 people. Its parks offer them, and all of us, many gifts of nature in our busy lives.
San Mateo County Parks, about as diverse as the county. The county has just a amazing cross-section of people from all different backgrounds. County parks are kind of the same way.
Its 23 parks highlight San Mateo County's history, beauty, and wildness.
You can't get any better than sitting on the edge of the world, looking at the waves come in.
In 2024, San Mateo County Parks will celebrate its 100th anniversary. And since their founding, these parks have become woven into the fabric of many family memories.
Generations of family reunions and picnics and people coming with their parents and their children. It's a really heartwarming thing to be able to welcome people into a place that they grew up in and to be a part of that legacy.
That legacy has grown over the years to include popular and diverse parks like San Bruno Mountain, Coyote Point, and Devil's Slide, and will soon include a brand new coastal gem.
Just a rare opportunity in San Mateo County, on the entire coast of California, for a brand new publicly accessible mile-long beach.
But the very first park in the system has a big birthday coming up, and there's a lot to celebrate. In 1924, at a time of intense logging, local leaders recognized a special grove of trees along Pescadero Creek and created Memorial County Park to preserve them. Quiet during the winter, this hushed forest will be brimming with families come summer.
They've been a home away from home for people since their inception. This park in particular, this place has generations of returning campers.
To better meet the needs of campers and nature, the county's management of these lands has continued to evolve as our awareness of the environment has deepened.
We used to dam the creek here at Memorial Park and make it an amazing swimming hole that a lot of people enjoyed. A lot of people made great memories in that swimming hole, but it wasn't the most environmentally responsible way to manage. So that's no longer something that we do.
From the first park, we traveled down the watershed and along dramatic coastal bluffs to where the county's newest park is now being born.
It's one of the places along the San Mateo coast where you can come and, relax and enjoy yourself and feel this kind of remote sense of beauty.
Tunitas Creek Beach, a secluded slice of coast that has been private for decades, will soon be open to the public, becoming the county's 24th park and the only one with recreational beach access.
The first time I got to actually go on the site, I was blown away by the scale when you get to the beach of just how big the property is, how long the beach is, how tall those cliffs are. It's breathtaking.
This gorgeous, mile-long beach, with its towering cliffs and uncommon geological features, was a clear candidate for public open space. And a partnership between the California Coastal Conservancy, the San Mateo County Parks Department, and the Peninsula Open Space Trust, also known as POST, came together to purchase this land and open it to the public.
Was really just an incredible opportunity to build a new beach park. And so Post eventually acquired 60 acres of bluff just south of Tunitas Creek in November of 2017. And one of the first things that we did was enter into an agreement with county parks so that they could begin daily ranger patrols. And that has really transformed the situation from an environmental standpoint and from a public safety standpoint.
The county purchased the land from Post with grant money provided by the Coastal Conservancy and began cleaning it up with the help of many local volunteers, allowing nature to heal and threatened species here to thrive again.
The beach itself is habitat for snowy plovers, a threatened species, so they're nesting here on the beach. The creek that flows into the ocean here at Tunitas supports steelhead trout and red-legged frogs.
Making space for these vulnerable animals and we visitors is the goal of the newly developed plan for the site, a low-impact vision which will include an outdoor classroom and access for all.
Proud that we're going to be ADA accessible from the parking area all the way to the mid-bluff features, which is where we would be able to do any programming. Anybody, all abilities can get down to the mid-bluff and enjoy the site. And given the terrain that we have to traverse and the length of the path to get to those accessible standards, we're going to be putting in a lot of rest stops and seating areas and overlooks along the way to really enjoy the view.
People have been admiring these views for millennia, and this new park is an opportunity to learn about and acknowledge the first stewards of this land, the Native Ohlone people.
Long before Post, County Parks, Coastal Conservancy, this place was a seasonal Ohlone village. It's part of just the really rich history that we hope to interpret here, and we have a land acknowledgement plaque planned for the upper bluff so that people, right as they get out and encounter the place, they understand that this was a really important place for the indigenous people and that it remains so today.
With this new park, San Mateo County is looking ahead to its next 100 years and far beyond, and how to best serve these places and the people who will visit them.
We're looking at how people use parks, who uses parks, and trying to continuously be better about opening the doors for everybody and removing barriers, whatever they may be.
Come here, sit on the beach, enjoy life, enjoy the Pacific Ocean, enjoy the view of the cliffs, get away from the stresses in our lives, and enjoy what nature has to offer.
Some of the most majestic coastal redwoods easily accessible to those of us in the Bay Area are in the Santa Cruz Mountains. These magnificent trees have stirred the passions of people for a very long time, and for over 100 years, conservationists have worked successfully to protect them, an inspirational achievement. Now we need to be inspired to preserve redwoods and their ecosystems from the ravages of a rapidly growing, human-induced climate crisis. Thankfully, organizations such as Sempervirens Fund are working to make forests healthier and more resilient to dangers such as out-of-control wildland fires and flooding and landslides during extreme rain events, based on an important understanding that the health and well-being of our natural world and our communities are tightly bound together. If we all join the effort to preserve what's precious in our natural world now, we will also preserve what's precious to us and generations far into the future. they will have every reason to be inspired to build on our legacy of wisdom and compassion as they pass these treasured mountain landscapes on to those who will follow them in these parts for centuries to come.